Evan Mercer tracked his life in sets, reps, and heart rate zones. Everything else, sleep, meal, even moods, was something to be optimized, measured, conquered. At 5 a.m. every morning, his alarm cut through the quiet of his small apartment, and by 5:12 he was already stepping onto the gym floor, the faint smell of rubber mats and iron plates greeting him like a second home. He wasn't a trainer, though most people assumed he was. He worked remotely as a data analyst, a job that paid well enough and required little social interaction. The gym, though, that was where he lived, where he understood the rules. Lift, sweat, improve, repeat. Relationships, on the other hand, had never fit neatly into a program. After one too many nights eating chicken and rice alone while scrolling past engagement photos, Evan did something that felt far more uncomfortable than a personal record deadlift. He signed up for a dating website. He filled out the profile clinically at first. Height, hobbies, interests. Fitness enthusiast felt too soft, so he wrote disciplined and goal-oriented. He uploaded a photo taken at the gym, subtle enough, he thought, though it definitely showed his arms. He hovered over the bio section for 10 minutes before typing. Looking for someone who values consistency, growth, and a healthy lifestyle. He almost deleted it. Then he hit save. Clara Bennett did not believe in consistency as a personality trait. Her world ran on urgency, calls, contracts, listings, negotiations. As a senior real estate executive, she was used to juggling million-dollar deals before lunch and charming skeptical clients by dinner. Her calendar was a battlefield of overlapping appointments, and she thrived in the chaos. But the chaos had a cost. At 36, Clara had everything she'd once dreamed of: a corner office, a luxury condo overlooking the city, and a reputation that made competitors nervous. What she didn't have was someone to come home to. Not really. Her friends insisted she try online dating. She resisted for months before finally giving in late one evening. Glass of wine in hand, laptop balanced on her knees. Her profile came together quickly. She was good at presenting things, after all. Real estate executive, lover of architecture, strong coffee, and spontaneous weekend trips. Looking for someone who can keep up, or at least laugh when I can't. She uploaded a polished headshot, then a candid one of her laughing at a balcony overlooking a skyline. She hesitated at the final prompt. What are you really looking for? Clara stared at it longer than she expected. Something real, she finally typed. Their profile should have never crossed paths. Different lifestyles, different rhythms, different definitions of a perfect day. But algorithms are a strange thing. Evan saw her first. He had just finished a brutal leg session and was sitting on a bench, towel draped around his neck, scrolling absent-mindedly. Her photo stopped him, not because of how she looked, though she was striking, but because she seemed alive in it, not posed, not calculated. He clicked. Real estate executive, spontaneous weekend trips. He almost swiped past. She didn't seem like someone who'd wake up at 5 a.m. for fasted cardio. But then he read her last line again, something real. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then he liked her profile. Claire saw his profile late one night after a 12-hour workday. She was sprawled on her couch, heels kicked off, scrolling through a parade of men who all seemed to blend together, similar names, similar bios, similar promises of adventure. Then she paused, disciplined and goal-oriented. She raised an eyebrow. His photos were simple, one at the gym, one outdoors, one that looked almost awkwardly candid. There was something earnest about him, unpolished, real. Fitness enthusiast, she murmured. That's new. She expected to roll her eyes and move on. Instead, she tapped his profile again. And then, almost without thinking, she liked it. The match came through instantly. Evan stared at his phone, heart rate spiking in a way no workout ever achieved. Clara smiled faintly when the notification appeared. Neither of them messaged first for 3 days. On the fourth day, Evan broke. Hi, Clara, I'll be honest, I'm not great at this, but you seem interesting, and I'd like to get to know you. He stared at the message for a full minute before sending it. Clara read it 10 minutes later, sitting in the back of her car between showings. She laughed softly. No clever pickup line, no overconfidence, just honest. She typed back, "Hi, Evan. I appreciate the honesty. I'm not great at this either, though I suspect I fake it better." Their conversation didn't explode into instant chemistry. It built, slowly. Evan asked structured questions at first, about her work, her schedule, her routines. Clara teased him for sounding like he was conducting an interview. "Do you always talk like this?" she wrote. "Only when I don't want to mess things up," he replied. She paused when she read that, then smiled. Clara talked about her world in bursts, big deals, stressful clients, and the thrill of closing something that had seemed impossible. Evan listened, fascinated by a life so different from his own. Evan talked about discipline, about the quiet satisfaction of progress, about the way the gym gave him control in a world that often felt unpredictable. Clara didn't understand it, but she respected it. After 2 weeks of messages, Clara suggested they meet. "Let's see if you're as serious in person as you are over text," she wrote. Evan stared at the message, pulse quickening. "Coffee?" he suggested. "Too predictable," she replied. "Let's meet somewhere that actually means something to you." He blinked. "You sure?" "Absolutely." They met at his gym. Clara arrived 10 minutes late, still in a tailored blazer, her heels clicking against the pavement as she approached the entrance. She felt slightly ridiculous, like she'd shown up to the wrong kind of interview. Evan was already there, leaning against the wall, dressed in simple workout clothes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clara smiled. "Well," she said, glancing at the building, "this is your world." Evan nodded, suddenly unsure of himself. "Yeah, it is." "Good," she said. "Show me." Inside, the gym buzzed with energy, weights clanging, music pulsing, bodies in motion. Clara took it all in with wide eyes. "This is intense," she admitted. Evan chuckled. "You get used to it." He showed her around, machines, racks, spaces he knew like the back of his hand. He explained things simply, without trying to impress her. Clara watched him more than she watched the equipment. He was different here, more relaxed, more himself. "Okay," she said finally, "teach me something." Evan hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Evan," she said, folding her arms, "I negotiate multi-million-dollar deals for a living. I think I can handle a dumbbell." He laughed, and for the first time, the tension between them broke. What started as a quick introduction turned into an hour, then 2. Clara tried things she'd never done before, laughing when she struggled, surprising herself when she didn't. Evan found himself watching her with something he couldn't quite name. Admiration, maybe? Or maybe something deeper. Afterward, they walked out into the evening air together. Clara exhaled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Okay," she said, "your world is impressive." Evan smiled. "Your turn next time." She tilted her head. "You're assuming there'll be a next time?" He met her gaze. "I'm hoping." She held his eyes for a moment longer than necessary. Then she nodded. "There'll be a next time." Their second date was in Clara's world. A high-rise rooftop event filled with polished conversations and expensive drinks. Evan felt out of place immediately. Clara noticed. She slipped her hand lightly into his. "Stay with me," she murmured. He did. She introduced him to colleagues, clients, friends who spoke in fast, confident rhythms. Evan didn't try to compete. He just listened, asked simple questions, stayed grounded. Clara watched the way he held himself. Not flashy, not performative, just steady, real. By the end of the night, they stood alone at the edge of the rooftop, city lights stretching endlessly below. "You did good," Clara said softly. Evan shrugged. "I felt like I was in a different universe." She smiled. "Welcome to mine." He looked at her. "And you came to mine." Something shifted in the air between them. They didn't rush. They didn't define anything too quickly, but they kept choosing each other. Morning workouts turned into shared routines. Clara didn't become a gym addict, but she started to understand the appeal. Evan didn't become a high-powered executive, but he began to appreciate the thrill of her world. They met in the middle. Weeks turned into months, conversations deepened, silences became comfortable. One evening, sitting on Clara's balcony, the city glowing beneath them, she turned to him. You know, she said, when I signed up for that website, I didn't expect this. Evan smiled faintly. Neither did I. She studied him. You're nothing like I thought I wanted. He raised an eyebrow. That bad, huh? She shook her head, smiling. No, better. He reached for her hand. I think maybe I needed someone who didn't fit into my system. She squeezed his fingers. And I needed someone who wasn't trying to sell me anything. Evan had just finished a workout and was sitting in his car checking his phone before heading home. A message request sat at the top of his inbox from a name he didn't recognize, Lily Harper. He almost ignored it. Then he opened it. Hi, this is going to sound strange. I think you might be my dad. Evan stared at the screen. The words didn't make sense, not at first. Then they rearranged themselves into something heavier. His chest tightened. He read the message again and again. His mind reached back years, past routines, past discipline, past the life he'd built, into a version of himself he barely recognized anymore. A summer, a woman, a relationship that had ended abruptly, without explanation. He hadn't thought about her in years. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding in a way no workout could replicate. That night, he told Clara. They sat on her balcony, the city glowing beneath them, just like before, but everything felt different. I don't know if it's real, he said, but it could be. Clara was quiet. Are you going to respond? He nodded slowly. I think I have to. She studied him carefully. Do you want it to be true? The question caught him off guard. I don't know, he admitted, and that was the truth that scared him most. Lily responded quickly once he reached out. She was 17. She lived 2 hours away. Her mother, Rachel, had never told Evan. Not until recently. She said she didn't think you were ready back then, Lily wrote, but she thinks maybe you are now. Evan didn't know how to feel about that. A week later, he met Lily. She looked like him. That was the first thing that hit him. Not just in features, but in the way she stood, the way she watched the world carefully before stepping into it. Hi, she said nervously. Hi, he replied. Neither of them knew what came next. They talked, awkwardly at first, then more easily. She told him about her life, her school, her interests. He listened, trying to absorb the reality of her existence. His daughter, the word felt too big. Then Rachel entered the picture again. Older, softer, but still familiar. I didn't know how to tell you back then, she said quietly, and then it felt too late. Evan didn't respond right away, because part of him understood, and part of him didn't. Everything became complicated after that. His carefully structured life no longer fit into clean routines. His past had stepped into his present. And his future with Clara, suddenly felt uncertain. Clara noticed the shift immediately. You're somewhere else, she said one evening. I'm not trying to be, he replied. But you are. He didn't argue, because she was right. The truth was, he felt pulled in two directions. Towards something new and fragile and real with Clara. Towards something unfinished, unresolved, something that now had a face, a voice, a name. Lily. One night, after a long silence between them, Clara finally asked the question that had been building. Do you still have feelings for her? Evan looked at her, caught off guard. For Rachel? Clara nodded. He exhaled slowly. I don't know what I feel, he admitted. I'm trying to figure out how to be a father to someone I didn't know existed a month ago. Clara's eyes softened, but there was something guarded behind them now. And where does that leave us? Evan didn't have an answer, not yet. Days passed, then weeks. He spent time with Lily, learning her, building something that should have existed years ago. He spoke with Rachel, carefully, cautiously, aware of the past between them. And he tried, really tried, not to lose what he had with Clara. In the end, it wasn't a grand moment that decided things. It was a quiet one. Evan stood on Clara's balcony again, the city stretching endlessly below. I can't change the past, he said, and I can't ignore it either. Clara nodded slowly. I know. And I don't want to lose this, he added, his voice steadier now. What we have. It's not something I planned. It doesn't fit into my system. A small smile touched her lips. No, she said softly, it doesn't. He stepped closer. But it's real. She searched his face. And her? Rachel is part of my past, he said. Lily is part of my life now. And you're who I want my future with. Clara held his gaze for a long moment. Then finally she nodded. Okay. Not perfectly certain, not without fear, but willing. And for the first time since the message appeared on his phone, Evan felt something settle inside him. Not everything, but enough. Because life, he was beginning to understand, wasn't about perfect systems. It was about choosing what mattered, again and again. And this time, he chose love.